Hello Algebra 1. Today we'll be talking about graphing linear functions. And so when we graph lines, we're thinking about the slope of the line, the y-intercept, maybe even horizontal lines. Also remember, vertical lines are not functions, so we will not be graphing those in this section. And so let's take a look at the first one. It says the slope is 4 and the y-intercept is -2. We need a place to start, so that will always be our y-intercept as long as we know that. And look along the y-axis, you see the point at -2. Hold your pencil there. The slope is 4, which is positive, and remember there is a 1 in the denominator, so we can travel up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and always go to the right. We'll go to the right 1. We have 2 points make a line, and so we can then just graph our line, and we're finished. Remember, if I talk too fast, just go ahead and hit pause if you need to catch up. Looking at number 2, we have a y equals mx plus b, a slope-intercept form of the equation. I realize this does not say y, it says f of x, but remember that is function notation. This is the function f. We just give it a name so that we can talk about it. Remember though, it acts just like y. And looking at this, y equals mx plus b, the constant number, b, is your y-intercept. So we can start at 3. And then the coefficient of x, the number in front of x, is your slope. It looks like we have a negative slope, so we need to travel down 1 and to the right 2. 2 points make a line, so we're ready to graph. Number 3, comparing it to the graph of, the parent graph of f of x equals x. And again, remember that's just y equals x. So the parent graph of a linear function has a slope of 1 and a y-intercept of 0. But on this graph, we want to reflect it. So we want to have a -1 for our slope, and we want to shift it up 2, which means we need to make our y-intercept 2. So shift it up 2, and then a -1 for our slope. Remember to go down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1. We can plot our points and then graph our line. Find the x and y intercepts. So right now our equation is not in slope-intercept form. So there's actually 2 ways we could go about this. Let's do what the directions say and find the x and y intercepts. So first of all, for the x-intercept, that's always the point something comma 0. So there's always a 0 in the y spot. Well, if I take away that y, I'm left with the equation 3x equals 6, which means that x equals 2. And if you do that mentally, that would be even faster. So if you could find your x-intercept at 2, that would be wonderful. And look at the x-axis, plot the point at 2. And now we'll do the same thing for the y-intercept. The y-intercept is always 0 comma something, so there's always a 0 in the x spot. So this time if we get rid of the x, we'll be left with -2y equals 6. And if we divide by -2, we get -3. And so let's look on our y-axis, we'll find the point at -3, and then we can graph our line. Now, if you would rather turn this into y equals mx plus b form, the slope-intercept form, we can go ahead and do that. In order to do that, you need to get y by itself, which means we need to move x to the other side. So let's leave the -2y, let's subtract the 3x, and we'll leave 6 just where it is. Next, we'll divide by the -2, and we need to do that in all 3 places. So y equals, let's see, a negative divided by negative is a positive 3 over 2, x minus 3. So the y-intercept is -3, we already knew that. Our slope is positive 3 over 2, so let's just make sure we did it correctly. Up 3 over 2. Yes, we did. So it's nice to have those 2 options. At this point, you are going to do the checkpoint, and the video will stop, and then you'll restart it once your checkpoint is finished. Moving on, number 5, let's start to analyze some graphs here. Kennedy graphed the line f of x, Hannah graphed the line g of x. It might be helpful to go ahead and plot these on our graphing calculator, so if you want to take that out. And so we have y equals, you want to clear out anything you have there. And in fact, if you want to do a zoom standard to just get your graph back to normal, that would be great. Go to your y equals. We want to do 1/4 x minus 2, and that will be the blue graph. And then it says Hannah's graph is 3/8 x, so 3 divided by 8, x minus 3. And so let's go ahead and graph those two lines. The second graph will be red. Here comes the first one in blue. That's the F graph. And here comes the second one, and that is the red graph. So some things you're going to notice, it looks like the red one is actually steeper than the blue one. Eventually the red one will take over and be on top of the blue one. Looks like they have the same x-intercept. Looks like they have different y-intercepts. They both have positive slope. So those are some of the things that you can analyze with your graph. So let's read the questions. Are the graphs increasing or decreasing? Well, they are both increasing because they have a positive slope. Which graph is steeper? We already said the red one was steeper, the one with the 3/8. Even if you want to check on your calculator, 3/8 is a bigger decimal than 1/4. So G had the bigger graph. Do the graphs have the same y-intercept? No. Even looking at the equations, one of them is -2, one of them is -3, so you know they don't have the same y-intercept. Do the graphs have the same x-intercept? Yes, they did. Is Kennedy's graph higher than Hannah's graph? Actually, let's look at that one more time. Right now, Kennedy's was blue. That was the F graph. That is higher than the red, but eventually it will take over. The red one will take over and become higher. If you need to see that, you can adjust your window. If we want to scoot it over just a little bit, let's change our X maximum to be 15. And we can just double check that to make sure we're right. So here's Kennedy's graph, and here comes Hannah's graph, and it's growing, and it's growing, and it's growing, and they meet, and then the red one takes over. So is Kennedy's graph higher than Hannah's graph? No, not all the time, it's not. At this point, you're ready for your checkpoint, and then you are finished with this video. Have a good day.